Good afternoon, Miss Daniels. My name is Susan Nichels. You and I have never spoken before, right?
Correct.
And I represent President Trump. Even though we've never spoken, you've met with the prosecutors on a number of occasions, right?
Correct.
And you rehearsed your testimony here, right?
No.
Well, according to you, the prosecutors subjected you to several grueling prep sessions, which included brutal mock cross-examinations, correct?
Yes.
And you say that that's not rehearsing your testimony?
It is not rehearsing my testimony.
But you pretended to be being cross-examined, right?
My testimony was not rehearsed.
That was not my question. Do you want me to repeat my question?
Yes, please.
Okay, you pretended to be cross-examined, didn't you?
No.
Well, when you said that just now, you agreed that you were subjected to grueling prep sessions, which included brutal mock cross-examination. Mock cross-examination means that they had someone who pretended to be cross-examining you, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. You can answer.
There were a lot of parts. Which part would you like me to answer first?
Okay, is it correct that you had mock cross-examination done?
I was asked questions as they would perhaps be asked by the court.
But you said on a previous occasion that you had mock cross-examination done to you.
I used the wrong word. Mock is not the correct term now that I'm in court.
So when you said that before, you were not being truthful?
I was incorrect. I did not know what true court would be like.
But they asked you questions as if you were being cross-examined, right?
Not exactly, no.
And you said brutal sessions, right? Grueling sessions, right?
True.
And they were pushing you, right?
The memories were hard to bring up. Yes, they were painful.
And they wanted to make sure that when you came into court, you were able to present a good appearance, right?
That I wouldn't be too upset.
And that you would be ready for cross-exam, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so when you said mock cross-examinations, it wasn't to get you ready for cross-exam.
No response.
Right? Is that what you're saying?
It was to have all of the facts. They wanted to ask, to have as much information as possible.
And the prosecutors began your direct testimony today by asking you why you started acting in pornography, right? Do you remember that happening this morning?
They asked me why?
Yes.
I don't think they asked me why.
Well, do you recall testifying that you started acting in pornography because you wanted to make more money, right?
Correct.
And it's that simple. You wanted more money, right?
Don't we all want to make more money in our jobs?
And that is why you started acting in pornography, right?
To get a pay increase from my dancing, yes.
That motivates you a lot in life, making more money, right?
Well, it is the United. That's what we do here.
Am I correct that you hate President Trump?
Yes.
And you want him to go to jail, right?
I want him to be held accountable.
You want him to go to jail, am I correct?
If he is found guilty, absolutely.
And you tweeted in the past that, I won't walk, I'll dance down the street when he's selected to go to jail, correct?
Can you show me that's exactly what I said? That's not...
Can we please pull up J2 right now, only for the witness and the parties, please? Is that your tweet?
Laughs.
Did you just laugh?
Selected is in quotes because I am quoting something that someone else said. Because I knew that you don't get selected to go to jail.
You just laughed about that, right?
Objection.
It is a typo.
Overruled.
That's why it is funny. You don't get selected to go to jail.
It's not because you think this is all funny?
No, absolutely not.
When you say so. And that, in fact, is what you tweeted, right?
Yes, I'm quoting another tweet.
You are quoting the word selected, right?
Correct.
And everything else is your words, right?
Correct.
Your words, I won't walk, I'll dance down the street when he's, quote, selected, end quote, to go to jail.
Correct.
And part of the reason you hate him is because he won a legal case against you and you owe him today over $500,000, right?
He didn't win the case. He won attorney's fees because I was not allowed to go to trial. Court. Sorry.
You're suing him for defamation, right?
Yes.
But your lawsuit was dismissed by the court, federal court in California, right?
Right. So it was not lost. It was dismissed.
It was dismissed. That means he won the case, right?
He was prevailed, but I was not found to have lost.
So the prevailing part is the winning, right?
Right.
So you agree with me, he won the case and he was awarded over $500,000 in legal fees, right?
Correct.
In fact, there were 3 awards for legal fees on his part, right?
Correct.
First, on December 11th, 2018, you were ordered to pay $293,052.33, correct?
I'm not sure of the exact dates.
Can I show you what's being marked Exhibit J4?
Okay.
If you look in the top, you see...
I see it.
You recognize that to be the order, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I just wasn't sure of the exact date.
I offer that in evidence.
Objection.
Sustained.
That was from October 15th, right?
I'm not sure.
Well, you see the date on it?
It says December.
I'm sorry. J4 correct occurred on December 11th, correct?
Correct.
And then you appealed that order and lost, right?
Correct.
And you then had to pay attorney's fees for the appeal, right?
Correct.
And that occurred on March 30th, 2022, correct?
I don't know the date.
Okay, can we show her what's been marked as defendants J5? That was March 30th, 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
And on that date, you were ordered to pay an additional $245,209.67 to President Trump, right?
Sorry, it says it's not on this page.
Can you turn to the last paragraph for the witness, please, on page 10?
Yes, ma'am.
Yet you appealed again, right?
Correct.
And you lost that again, right?
Correct.
And you were ordered on April 4th, 2023 to pay an additional $121,972.56, correct?
Same. Could you please show it to me?
Sure. Can we show the witness and the parties what has been marked as Defendant's Exhibit J6, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That was on April 4th, 2023?
Correct.
So, in total, because of your frivolous litigation against President Trump,
Objection.
Sustained.
because of your cases that you brought that were dismissed against President Trump, courts have awarded President Trump over $660,000 in attorney's fees, correct?
Roughly, yes.
And then you testified that was offset by about $100,000 in attorney's fees
Yes.
in a different case.
Witness nods, yes.
So, the total amount in attorney's fees alone was approximately $560,000 that you owe to President Trump, right?
About,
And that's before interest, right?
I would assume, yes.
And California, has 10% annual on this, right?
I did not know.
And some of these have been pending since 2018.
Correct.
And you testified on direct you were asked, as a result of the offset, you have paid some of the legal fees, right?
Correct.
But you didn't pay anything out of your pocket, did you?
No response from witness.
You didn't take any money out of your pocket and pay it to Donald Trump, did you?
Object to defense counsel's voice.
Sustained. Please allow her to answer.
Sorry, can I hear the question again?
Sure, you didn't take any money out of your pocket and pay President Trump, did you?
No.
In fact, you have not taken one penny out of your pocket to pay these awards, right?
Right.
And you said on direct it's because you can't afford it, right?
Right.
But you have money, right?
We all have money.
It's because you're choosing not to pay him one penny, President Trump, right?
We all have, I don't understand the question.
Well, you've chosen to disobey the court order, right?
I have chosen not to make a payment while it's still pending, yes.
You have announced publicly that you will never pay President Trump the money that you owe him, right?
Right.
In fact, the day after the Federal Court of Appeals ordered you to pay President Trump $245,000, you tweeted, "I will go to jail before I pay a penny," correct?
Correct.
And I show you what has been marked as Exhibit J7. We can just show that to the witness, the parties, and the court. You recognize that as your tweet?
Yep.
I offer that in evidence.
Objection.
Sustained.
Prior evidence applies.
Approach.
Whereupon the following proceedings were held at sidebar.
She's admitted each of these.
She admitted it.
It's not coming in as a prior inconsistent statement alone. It's not coming in as that. It's prior evidence of bias, which is admissible to show bias and motive.
You've excluded any exhibits to be admitted by them on cross.
No.
That's not correct. I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Whereupon the following proceedings were held in open court.
Accepted into evidence.
We can show that. Is that your Twitter handle?
Yes.
At Stormy Daniels?
Yes.
And that was your tweet on March 21st, 2022, right?
Correct.
And that was right when the Court of Appeals had ordered you to pay money, right?
Roughly, yes.
And that was you saying, "I don't care about a federal court order," right?
That is me saying that I will not pay for telling the truth.
Well, it was a federal court order, you understood, right?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled. You can answer.
That's not what I was responding to.
Well,
My motivation was because I was telling the truth.
Ms. Daniels, you understand that there's no question standing, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
You're correct. Can you ask the witness to respond?
Sure. Please wait until there's a question, and then you can answer the question.
Okay.
But you don't care about the court order, do you?
Of course I care.
So even though there's 3 court orders ordering you to pay President Trump, you are not going to do that, right?
I don't know.
Well, isn't it correct? Well, let me show you what has been marked as J1 for the witness and the parties. Do you recognize that
Yep.
as a tweet by you?
Yep.
I offer that in evidence, Your Honor.
Accepted into evidence.
We can show it to everybody. Again, that's you, your tweet, right?
Correct.
And it's you again saying, "I don't owe him shit and I'll never give that orange turd a dime," right?
Correct.
And that's you calling President Trump names, right?
In retaliation for what he said to me, yes.
And that's you making fun of how he looks, right?
Correct.
So when you were asked on your direct examination if he called you horseface, you call him names all the time, right?
Yes.
You despise him and you made fun of how he looks, right?
Because he made fun of me first.
So one of you started it, but you both continue it's right?
Correct.
But in any case, you also have vowed that you will never give him a dime, right?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Sustained.
To be clear, at the time that you made this tweet, there were already 3 federal court orders,
Objection.
or 2 ordering you to pay money, right?
Sustained.
Now, you know that debtors are required to fill out a form under penalty of perjury disclosing their accounts, right?
Yes.
You testified on the record there is a case in Florida against you by Donald Trump trying to collect money, right?
Yes.
And you're required to fill out that form, right?
Yes.
And you have totally refused to fill out that form for ages, correct?
False.
Well, am I correct that you gave an interview with Jeff Toobin where you said you were not going to fill out that form?
It has been filled out to my knowledge. You'd have to ask my attorney.
Did you understand the question?
She answered the question.
She did.
Did you give an interview to Jeff Toobin where you said you were not going to fill out the form?
I didn't.
Why don't you start again?
Thank you. Do you recall giving an interview to Jeff Toobin where you said you would not fill out that form?
Yes.
And your lawyer was asking you to fill out the form and you said, I'm fully prepared to go to jail before doing this, right?
Correct. They were asking for questions about my daughter on that form.
Well, the form asked your daughter's name in one place, right?
Yes.
But other than that, the form is entirely only about your assets, right?
I don't remember. My attorney sent it to me.
Okay, well, now you say you filled out the form, right?
Filled out parts of it. My attorney did it for me.
Let me show you what has been marked as J10A, J10A. Do you recognize that as the form?
It was an email from my attorney, so I think so. I'm not sure.
We can turn to the next page, J10B.
Whereupon counsel confer.
And if we turn to page 3 of that, you see that's a fact and information sheet for you.
Yes.
I offer this in evidence.
Objection.
Sustained.
The witness whispers to the judge.
This has my address.
Well, let me ask you, you only partially filled this form out, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Can I approach?
The witness whispers to the judge.
This has my address.
Whereupon the following proceedings were held at sidebar.
We are getting way down the road now in that case. Now, I understand they opened the door on bias concerning the legal fees, and there's been a lot of testimony elicited. But at this point, this is entirely collateral. The core. I agree. I allowed you to introduce 1 or 2 pieces of evidence that really are collateral. I allowed you to introduce them. I don't see why you need this.
I don't need to put it, I just want to question her about, she lied about her assets and is trying to hide her assets.
Okay.
That's all I wanted the document for?
She turned to me, she looked very fearful, and she said, "That's got my address." You asked to approach, and she said, "That's got my address." She is very much afraid of this form. Ask the questions you want to ask her.
I would block off the address.
I can appreciate that.
We don't need to put that in. I want to ask her about lying about the form.
You can ask her, sure.
Whereupon the following proceedings in open court.
Ms. Daniels, if you could turn your attention. If we can show for the witness and the parties only page. Well, just to be clear, this is a fact information sheet having to do with you. Correct?
Yes.
Judge, may we approach?
Take that down, please.
Whereupon the following proceedings were held at sidebar.
You're not offering that into evidence, it's being shown to the parties, because she's very much afraid of your client seeing that address. That's what I was communicating to you before. Why don't you just ask her questions about the form?
I was going to turn to a different page. I wanted to ask her and wanted to see. She says she has no money in her bank account.
Why don't you ask her first?
This is an unsigned form. I don't know what we're asking about. There is no signature on this form. She's not entitled to ask her about a form that's got information that is not signed by anybody.
Has this form been filed?
Her lawyer sent it to President Trump's lawyer.
You can look at it.
It got filed with the court?
It doesn't get filed, is my understanding. It's not signed.
Can I see the form?
Yes.
It's entirely unsigned.
This is the entire form?
Yes, at least that's the entire form I received.
Whereupon the court reviews the documents.
Where is it signed?
It's not signed.
It's not signed. I was going to ask her. She's been delaying. She won't fill out the form for 3 years, 4 years. She just said, no, I had it filled out. That was her testimony.
Here's what we can do. You can hand it to her instead of putting it up. You can just ask her questions. And you can redirect and ask her if this form is signed or not.
Her lawyer sent it to Donald Trump's lawyer. I understand her concerns.
That's why you can question her.
It's a concern he'll know her address. It was sent to her.
I am not going to get into this discussion. You can hand this up to the witness.
Whereupon the following proceedings were held in open court.
Are you handing that up to the witness?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I'm handing you up what has been marked as Defense J10. That's the document we've been talking about, right?
Yes.
That's the document you said you testified that you had filled out, right?
Objection. I don't believe that was the testimony.
Sustained.
You said it was no longer true that you were refusing to fill out this form, right?
Yes.
So this form has been partially filled out, right?
Correct.
And if we turn to page 3, it asks about your spouse's income, right?
Yes.
And you say that's unknown, right?
Objection. Reading from a document.
I'm sorry.
Objection.
What's the objection?
It's not an evidence.
Sustained.
Well, when you filled out this form, you did not give your spouse's income, right?
I won't fill out information that endangers me or my daughter, no matter what.
I'm asking about your spouse's income, right?
Right.
And you did not fill out your spouse's income.
Right.
It asks about what cars you own or are buying.
Objection.
Sustained.
You also refused to give that information, right?
That's...
Whereupon the witness reviews the document.
Oh, actually, that was on there. So, yeah.
And you said you have no bank accounts, right?
Objection. That was not the testimony.
Why don't you just ask her, does she have bank accounts?
Do you have bank accounts?
Yes.
Did you tell that on the form that required to fill out disclosing that information?
I didn't fill out this form.
You didn't fill it out. You're still refusing to provide that information, aren't you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, have you provided the information you're required under law to provide so that President Trump can collect on the judgments from you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
And you refuse to sign the form as well, right?
Objection.
Overruled. You can answer.
I have not filled out. I haven't been given the form to sign. It went to my attorney. He has not returned it to me to sign.
Didn't you testify a few minutes ago it came to your email?
From my attorney, he has not filled it out.
And now you, in fact, own a home, don't you?
No, I do not.
Well, isn't it a fact that in 2022, you tweeted that you had earned so much money from making pornography that you had just paid for your new ranch home?
I did tweet that, but I didn't own a home, and I do not own a home.
So when you tweeted that, that was false?
We did not end up buying that house.
And am I correct that at that time, you said you made $1 million in a book deal and in the surreal life, and you're just doing the same job you've always done and love doing, and that you just paid for your new ranch home?
I would have to see the tweet.
Okay, we can pull up J17. Isn't that correct? You said you just made $1 million?
I said I have made $1 million.
And you said I just paid for my new ranch, right?
Yes.
And that was on December 11th, 2022, right?
Yes.
So was that a lie?
I pay rent at a ranch. I didn't say I purchased it.
Is that what you meant when you tweeted to the world that you just paid for your new ranch, that you were paying rent?
Yes.
With $1 million?
Witness nods yes.
Isn't it true that you have been hiding your assets because you don't want to pay the judgment against you?
No.
Didn't you set up a trust in the name of your daughter?
No.
And isn't it true that you are hoping that if Donald Trump is convicted, you'll never have to pay him the more than $500,000 you owe him?
I hope I don't have to pay him no matter what happens.
Now, while you've been refusing to pay President Trump the money that you owe him, you've also been making money by claiming that you had sex with President Trump, right?
Are you talking about the book? Yes.
And you've been making money by claiming you had sex with Donald Trump for more than a decade, right?
I have not been paid for interviews in the United States, if that's what you mean.
Well, that was not my question. My question was, you've been making money by claiming to have had sex with President Trump for more than a decade, right?
I've been making money by telling my story about what happened to me.
And that story, in essence, is that you say you had sex with President Trump, right?
Yes.
And that story has made you a lot of money, right?
It has also cost me a lot of money.
Now, just going back, isn't it a fact that before you started making money off of claiming you had sex, you were denying that you had sex with President Trump, right?
Because of the NDA, yes.
The NDA was signed in 2016, right?
Yes.
Isn't it a fact that in 2011 you spoke with a prominent lawyer named Gloria Allred about whether you could sue President Trump for money, right?
I don't remember what was talked about in that conversation, but I also told her that I had sex with Donald Trump.
You claim you told her you had sex with Donald Trump. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Do you remember writing a book called Full Disclosure?
Yes.
I show you what has been marked as Exhibit J11. That's just for the witness and the parties and the court, please. You recognize that as the book that you wrote?
Yes.
It's called Full Disclosure, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, if we could just put that in evidence, just the picture of the cover, not the book.
I'll allow it.
We can show that to everybody. That's the cover of the book you wrote, right?
Yes.
And you stated in this book that Gina Rodriguez arranged a phone call between you and Gloria Allred to tell your story, right?
Correct.
Who is Gina Rodriguez?
She's a talent manager.
She was someone who helped you on several occasions to sell your story, right?
Correct.
In 2011, she arranged for you to speak with Gloria Allred, right?
Yes.
Who is Gloria Allred?
She's an attorney.
She's a prominent attorney who has represented lots of women who have made money from men by threatening to sue them, right?
Objection.
Overruled.
Is that correct?
Yes, I actually turned down her offer.
Okay, and in this, in fact, you told Gloria you had a phone call with Gloria Allred?
Correct.
You described to Gloria Allred your story about President Trump, right?
Yes.
And you told Gloria Allred that you did not have sex with President Trump, didn't you?
No, I did not say that. I told her that I did.
I want to direct your attention to page 194 of Exhibit J11G, which will show just to the parties and the witness. Okay, if we could blow up for the witness where it starts with I barreled, that paragraph. You see that? You can read it to yourself where it starts off with I barreled. Am I correct that you told you had a conversation and you said in a prior statement that you gave Gloria Allred an extremely abbreviated version of your interactions, leaving out sex, right?
Yes, during that phone conversation, when I met her in person later, I told her everything.
All right, I'm talking about what you wrote in your book. This is your book, right?
Objection.
Overruled.
This is your book, right?
Yes.
And in your book, you said that you left out sex and anything in the least bit interesting, right?
Yes.
And then Ms. Allred asked you, is there anything right?
No response from witness.
Right?
Yes.
And you said no, right?
Right.
And then she said, well, I can't do anything else for you if that's all there is, right?
Correct.
And you say you wrote, I hung up, and that was that, right?
Correct. I did not tell her all the sex details. I did not trust her. And she wanted me to accuse him of forced, basically rape. And so I did not continue that conversation.
None of that is in your book, is it?
No.
Right? You're making this up as you sit there, right?
No.
Well, you wrote a whole book and you specifically described that encounter and you didn't say anything like you just said, right?
Which is why I said it's an abbreviated version of my interaction, leaving out the sex part. I'm pretty sure that backs up my story.
You said it's an abbreviated version of your interaction with Donald Trump, right?
Abbreviated means I left out all of the details, including the sex, because she wanted to force me into saying things that were not true.
Meaning you didn't tell Gloria Allred anything about sex, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
You learned from that, did you not, that a story about President Trump that doesn't include sex will make you no money, right?
It taught me that I should tell the truth and not trust people that I didn't feel like I could trust, and she was one of them.
In other words, it taught you that if you want to make money off of President Trump, you better talk about sex, right?
No, although that does seem to be the case, exactly.
So the next time you tried to sell your story about President Trump, you did in fact change your story and say you had sex, right?
I don't know what time you're talking about.
Well, in 2011, you tried to sell In Touch magazine a story about you having sex with President Trump, right?
The first time I told the story about having sex with Donald Trump was in 2007. So there wasn't a next time.
Well, your conversation with Gloria Allred was in 2011, right?
Right. It was in the fall of 2011. In Touch was in the spring of 2011.
When was your baby born?
What was that?
When was your baby born?
Objection.
Overruled. Just tell us the year.
2010.
And when you described that interaction with Gloria Allred in your book, you said it was right after the baby was born, right?
She was an infant.
And in fact, your conversation, you had a series of phone conversations with a reporter named Jordy McGraw from In Touch magazine, right?
Right.
And she taped your conversations, right?
I don't know.
And later a transcript of it was published, right?
It was published. I don't know if she records the conversation or not, or if she takes notes.
In 2011, when you were trying, you had those conversations. You were trying to sell your story correct about President Trump, right?
Which conversation?
Well, the conversations you had with this reporter from In Touch magazine, right?
Yes.
And you thought you were offered $15,000 to be paid when the story ran, right?
Correct.
And am I correct that then Michael Cohen threatened to sue the magazine if the story would run?
That's what I was told.
At the same time,
I don't know.
At the same time, you told In Touch magazine that you had sex with President Trump. You had your lawyer, Keith Davidson, tell the Dirty.com that you never had sex with Donald Trump, right?
I had him send them a notice to take down what they had written.
And you denied having had sex with President Trump, right?
Right, because I was afraid.
Well, on the one hand, you're telling the story to In Touch magazine that you did have sex, and at the same time, you are telling E! magazine or the Dirty.com that you never had sex with him, right?
It was not the same time. The Dirty came after I was threatened in a parking lot.
You sure?
No response from the witness.
You sure about that?
Yeah, they ran it a couple of times, I think. I'm not sure. It was not until I was afraid.
And am I correct that you made a statement in 2011 to E! Online where you said that to E! News that the story about you having sex, in your words, was bullshit?
I never gave a statement to E! I was asked what I thought about all of this stuff, and I said I thought it was bullshit.
Well, you said the story was bullshit, right?
Yes, but I did not refer to the act. The fact that there was a story and they were trying to publicize it and put it on all these gossip sites was and still is bullshit.
So you're saying now that was not a denial?
No.
You're saying it was bullshit that it's going to be reported. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And that's at the same time you're trying to make $15,000 off of this story?
No response from witness.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And isn't it a fact that what you said depended on who would pay you money?
No.
Well, one place you say I didn't have sex. The other place you say I did have sex. And it depends on who's paying money, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
False. I did 60 minutes with Anderson Cooper and they gave me 0.
We'll get back to that. I'm back in 2011, right? You understand that, right?
Yes.
And Anderson Cooper is in 2018, right?
Yes.
So in 2011, I'll repeat my question. One place won't pay you money. You say you didn't have sex with President Trump. Another place that's offering you $15,000. You gave an extensive interview saying you did have sex with President Trump.
It was a 15-minute interview and it was the only one I did, and I turned down all of the other ones for money.
But the answer to my question is yes, isn't it?
No, it's not.
And when you say it was a 15-minute interview, it was a 22-page article, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that's 22 pages of transcript, right?
I don't know.
And you're a fast speaker, but you think you speak that fast, that you could generate 22 pages of transcript in 15 minutes?
Objection.
Sustained.
I don't know.
And you, in fact, never received that $15,000?
Correct.
That was because, as you said, President Trump said your story was false and Michael Cohen threatened to sue, right?
I don't know the exact reason why. It did not run. I know that.
And you claim that in 2011, after you sold your story to In Touch, you were approached by a man in a car.
By what?
A man in a car.
Yes.
And according to you, this man threatened you and your infant daughter?
Correct.
He threatened your lives, you said?
He implied it, yes.
In 2011, when this supposedly happened, you didn't tell anybody about this supposed threat to yourself and your baby daughter?
I told my close friends.
Well, according to you, that threat happened while you were on the way to exercise class?
Correct.
And right after it supposedly happened, you say you actually went to that exercise class?
I didn't go to the class. I went to the restroom in the class.
You went to the restroom. After that, you went to the class, right?
No, I did not return to exercise class. I waited until they were done with the class.
But you not tell anybody at that class? You didn't tell your instructor that you had just supposedly been threatened?
No, I lied to her and told her that my baby had a blowout in her diaper. That is why I was crying in the bathroom.
You didn't tell anybody else in the class about it?
No, they left before I came out of the bathroom anyway.
You never before this instance said you were crying about it, did you? That was the first time you ever said that?
No, it's not.
1 minute. Isn't it true that you wrote about this in your book, right?
Yes.
And you said that you went right to the bathroom and you must have looked crazy because the instructor yelled after you, "Are you okay?" Right?
Correct.
You said you responded, "She had a blowout, I'll be there in a minute."
I was afraid to tell anyone. I was alone in the bathroom. I held my baby close instinctively, covering her head as I stared at myself in the mirror.
You were shaking still, but less now, correct?
Correct.
You didn't say I was lying and the instructor saw me crying, did you?
Yes, I did. I said she had a blowout. That is a lie. That is not telling the truth.
Then, in fact, in the same book, you said that I went and did the class, told no one what happened in the parking lot, right?
Yes, I went to the class afterwards. Everybody was gone. Told my instructor that she had an accident, and that was it.
When you wrote, I went and did the class, you didn't mean to say I did the exercise class?
It was incorrect. I did not do the class.
So you wrote a book saying that you did the class, and now you are saying you didn't do the class.
I did not do the class. There is no way I could have possibly done exercises as scared as I was.
In any case, you didn't tell anybody in the class about it, right?
No, but I wasn't close with those women anyway.
You didn't call the police, did you?
No.
You didn't even tell your husband who was the father of the child who you claim was threatened, right?
Correct.
The first time you publicly told this story that was about a supposed threat to your life was in 2018, right?
I don't remember.
Well, it was on the Anderson Cooper show, wasn't it?
Publicly in like an interview?
Yes, yes.
I know I had told it before that because a colleague told it in an interview she did about me. She was the only person that I called that day or the next day after it happened.
At the time, though, in your book, you said you told no one, right?
Yes.
Now you claim you told a colleague?
Afterwards, not that day.
But you wrote you told nobody about this story?
Which I said in the book, as you just read, I told nobody about it that day or the days that followed.
So the first time you mentioned it publicly was 7 years after it supposedly happened, right?
Yes.
And for 7 years, it's your claim that you kept this story secret from your husband, right?
I kept all of it secret from my husband.
Your daughter's life was in jeopardy and you did not tell her father, right?
Right.
But when you went on Anderson Cooper and were interviewed, you decided to announce it to the world, right?
Correct.
And the reason you told this story in 2018 is you were using it as an excuse for why you never publicly said before that you had had sex with President Trump, right?
I don't understand what you were asking.
Well, you used this supposed threat that happened to you as an excuse to tell people, this is why I didn't talk publicly. I was afraid, right?
But I did talk publicly.
Well, when did you give a public interview before 2011, before 2018?
I talked publicly on the speakerphone on set multiple times. On a radio show in 2007, I told the story.
Okay, Miss Daniels, I am asking about an interview, not what you supposedly told friends.
An interview on the radio show. That was an interview.
When was that?
In 2007.
What show was that?
A radio show in Tampa.
And you didn't say the person's name, did you?
Yes, I did.
Are you sure?
I wrote it down on a piece of paper and it is shown in the video.
That is what you claim now you said then, but what occurred is...
Objection.
Overruled.
What occurred is obviously you were asked 4 famous people you slept with.
Yes.
And you wrote down 3 people's names.
I don't remember how many names I wrote down. It might have been 3 or maybe 4.
It was never made public.
Correct.
What is you claim the public story that you claim you told before?
I mentioned Lake Tahoe in the hotel room, and that is pretty obvious. It is about Donald Trump.
In 2018, when you went on TV, you said with Anderson Cooper, you never told the story publicly before because I was threatened?
Correct.
And you blame that on Michael Cohen, right?
No, I blamed it on the man in the garage.
But you had said that you believed that Michael Cohen was the one who sent that man in the garage?
I did at the time. I was wrong.
At the time, you hated Michael Cohen?
Absolutely.
But now you and Michael Cohen are buddies?
I wouldn't say we are buddies.
You went on his podcast a couple of times?
To have him apologize, and he did.
You hosted his podcast, right?
No.
You didn't take over his podcast and post it on your site?
It was not his podcast. My podcast is called Beyond the Norm. His was called Mea Culpa.
When you say you went on his podcast to have him apologize, you went on to talk about your story about supposedly having sex with President Trump?
Correct.
And on that podcast, he told you he had nothing to do with any supposed threat made to you, right?
Correct.
And by the way, both you and Michael Cohen share a desire to make money off of seeing President Trump go to jail, right?
Objection as to Michael Cohen.
Sustained.
You have a desire.
I am sorry. What was the question again?
Withdrawn. In 2018, you went on The View and repeated your story about this guy that supposedly threatened you, right?
Yes.
And at that point, you had a sketch artist draw a picture of what the man supposedly looked like.
Michael Avenatti hired a sketch artist.
You announced it on The View?
Yes, he did.
You and Michael Avenatti were sitting right next to each other?
Correct.
He was your lawyer, right?
Yes.
And when you say he did it, you did it with him?
No, he hired the artist and surprised me with it, honestly.
And you and Michael Avenatti offered a $100,000 reward for anyone who could identify this supposed assailant.
Michael Avenatti offered a $100,000 reward. I would have never agreed to that.
Michael Avenatti never had to pay that $100,000 reward, did he?
No.
Because no one ever came forward and said, I know who this man might be?
A lot of people did. Either none of them checked out or he didn't follow up on it. He definitely got a lot of hits.
That's because this man never existed?
He absolutely existed.
The whole story was made up?
No, none of it was made.
Can we take an afternoon break?
Would you like to take a break?
Yes.
All jurors, let's take an afternoon break. You can all step out.
Jury leaving courtroom.
You may be seated.
Witness leaving courtroom. Recess. Continued case on trial.
I imagine we are going to continue on Thursday.
How late are we going?
If we have to continue to Thursday, we will stop at 4:30. Then I imagine there is some redirect.
Yes, Your Honor.
Witness entering.
Let's get the jury.
Jury entering courtroom. Case on trial continued. All are present and properly seated.
Ms. Neschels.
Before the break, just a few minutes ago, we talked about an online article. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you said that you were quoted in there as saying that the story is bullshit, right?
Yes.
You said what you meant by that. You weren't denying that had you sex with him, you were discussing this as a bullshit thing to do, right?
Yes.
If we can show that. Do you remember saying to Online that you vehemently deny the story about you and President Trump hooking up after Trump had played the golfing event and then meeting up multiple times after that?
No, I do not remember that.
If we could show the witness what has been marked as defendant's J42, turn to page 3 of that. Am I correct that you previously said that you vehemently denied the story about the two of you hooking up after Trump had played in a golfing event and vehemently denied meeting up multiple times after that?
I did not give that statement. I never gave a statement directly to them at all.
You're saying that this is not true. That's your testimony.
I am saying that I did not give a statement denying the story. It says, Daniels herself told B, news that she is not commenting, but the story is bullshit. That is my one comment.
So you're saying where the article says you vehemently deny this, the article is false. Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Turning back to in 2011, you were denying to the dirty.com that you had sex with President Trump.
I never spoke to the dirty.com. I couldn't have denied it. They put up a statement. I was asked if I wanted Keith Davidson to have it removed. I absolutely wanted to have it removed. I didn't confirm or deny anything to the dirty. I never spoke to them.
Well, your lawyer did?
He told them to take the story down. Whether he spoke to them directly or not, I don't know. All I know is he wanted it down and he took it down.
Keith Davidson was your lawyer?
He was Gina's lawyer. That is how I met him. She said, do you want me to have my attorney take it down? I said, yes.
You asked him. You authorized him to deny that story was true and to get it taken down, right?
No, I did not. I authorized him to have the story taken down.
Now in 2016, you claim you have been threatened and you were afraid for your life, right?
Yes.
But at that point, and were you afraid for your life, you had been told, don't talk anymore about Trump, otherwise your life and your baby's life will be in danger, right?
Correct.
And so you decided, well, I'm going to sell my story, right?
I didn't just decide that. I was given advice from someone to do so.
You were given advice, according to you, that instead of staying quiet because your life was threatened, instead the best thing to do was to go out and sell your story, right?
Yes, I was very different and a much braver person in 2016 than I was in 2011. Because Donald Trump was not just a guy on television, he was running for president. I was more afraid for my situation. The attorney told me, get high, stay light, get out in front where you are safe, hide in plain view.
In 2011, your story wasn't worth much money?
I don't know what it was worth. I turned down many offers.
You turned down or tried to get $15,000, you couldn't get that?
Correct.
Now, in 2016, you say that you were afraid, but the story was worth a lot of money for you now, right?
Correct.
And you then had Gina Rodriguez go out and try to sell the story, right?
Correct. I didn't care for how much. I just wanted the story out there, which is why I had a press conference set up for free.
And you didn't give a free press conference, did you?
I didn't have to.
You were looking to extort money from President Trump, right?
False.
Well, that's what you did, right?
False.
And just when we're talking about your fear, the fear, your supposed fear that you supposedly felt is totally based on the supposed incident that took place in 2011 that you never told anybody about, right?
I am really sorry. I can't always hear when you step away. I am so sorry.
When you say this fear that you say you were under in 2016 is based on the supposed incident that supposedly took place 5 years earlier that you still hadn't told anybody publicly about, right?
It was not a supposed incident. It was a true incident. I had told a lot of people.
You hadn't told your husband, right?
No.
And then so because you had that fear, you decided to do exactly the opposite of what that person had told to you do, right?
Which person?
That supposed guy who showed up in that parking lot?
Correct.
So you weren't really very scared, were you?
I was terrified. I decided to change my tactic. It was a new ball game. There's a big difference between a reality TV star and someone running for office.
The truth is, you saw your opportunity to make it known. You had Gina Rodriguez try to sell your story to the National Enquirer.
I saw my opportunity to get the story out. I didn't put a price tag on it. That is why I did every interview for free.
You didn't do any interviews for free at that point?
Correct.
And I want to show you what is in evidence as People's Exhibit 117A, which are texts between Gina Rodriguez and Dylan Howard of the National Enquirer. If we can put that up and turn to page 2, and if we can blow up the part that starts with Stormy Daniels, if we can go to the prior line, this is in evidence of text between Gina Rod, Dylan Howard. Do you see in the first box, it is dated June 28th, 2016?
Yes.
And Gina, and you see where it says from 6?
Yes.
There is a redaction?
Yes.
Do you see that? I represent to you that is Rodriguez's email address that has been redacted out. Am I correct that she says Stormy Daniels in the next box? She says, I have her?
I am going to object as asking this witness what someone else said.
It's in evidence. If you can confirm that is what it says, that what it says.
And then Dylan Howard in the next box asks, is she ready to talk, right?
Yes.
And it says, I thought she denounced it previously in the next box, right?
Yes, I don't know who Wide Eye Communications or Dylan is.
But you had, in fact, denounced it previously, right?
I don't know what this is in reference to exactly. Specifically,
I am not asking you about it.
I am going to ask you to let the witness finish.
Sustained.
Had you denounced it previously?
I don't know what is previously.
Did you denounce the story that you had said that you had not had sex, though she denounced it previously?
I don't want to confirm or deny something when I don't know what they are talking about.
When you look at the next box, she said, from Gina Rodriguez, she said, she will do it under 2 conditions, if you can go to the next box. And then, she doesn't want to go on record about it, but will tell her story through a source. It says, she had sex with him. She wants $100,000. Do you see that?
I do.
And that was in June of 2016, correct?
Correct.
And President Trump was running for president of the United States at that point, correct?
Correct.
And you had authorized Gina Rodriguez to try to sell your story, right?
Correct.
And you wanted to do it through a source, right?
Once again, I don't know what this is specifically talking about. I don't know who Dylan is. I don't know who Wide Eye Communication is. She doesn't want to go on record about it, but will tell the story through a source. I don't know which specific story. Is it about sex? Is it about being threatened? You want me to comment on something when I don't know the context? That's not fair.
Putting aside the text, I am asking you a question. My question to you is, in June of 2016, had you authorized Gina David to sell your story under the condition you would tell it through a source?
I authorized Gina Rodriguez to shop the story so I could make it public.
One of your conditions was that you were telling it through a source, and the other was that you get $100,000, right?
I don't remember that, no.
You don't remember those being your conditions?
No, because they were I had a press conference.
Okay, but you didn't do the press conference?
No, because Gina came back into the picture. I hadn't talked to her in a long time, so to be quite honest about the chance to get the story out and make some money, yes.
You wanted to get some money?
Get the story out and make some money.
You wanted to do it anonymously, right?
No.
You said Gina Rodriguez's statement there was false?
I don't know what she is referring to, so I'm not going to say her statement is false.
Displayed. And turn to page 4. Look at the second box from the bottom, and you see it says on the top box, what happened with Stormy Daniels' interview on Trump? And then Dylan Howard responds, let's discuss this week. And Gina says, okay, she's asking. This is in July of 2016, correct?
Correct.
Were you in fact pushing again that you wanted to sell your story?
I was pushing that I wanted to sell my story, yes.
And that was in July of 2016, right?
Yes.
And if you turn to page 6?
Why don't we stop at this point? All right, jurors, let's call it a day. All right. I remind you to please not talk either among yourselves or with anyone else about anything related to the case. Please continue to keep an open mind. Do not form or express an opinion about the defendant's guilt or innocence until all the evidence is in, and I have given you my final instructions on the law, and I have directed you to begin your deliberations. Do not request, accept, agree to accept, or discuss with any person the receipt or acceptance of any payment or benefit in return for supplying any information concerning the trial. Report directly to me any incident within your knowledge involving an attempt by any person to improperly influence you or members of the jury. Do not visit or view any of the locations discussed in the testimony, and do not use any program or electronic device to search for or view any locations discussed in the testimony. Do not read, view, or listen to any accounts or discussions of the case that includes the reading or the listening to the reading of any transcripts of the trial or the reading of posts on any court sites. Do not attempt to research any fact, issue, or law related to the case. Do not communicate with anyone about the case or the people involved in the case. And that means including by telephone, text messages, emails, chat rooms, blogs, or the internet. Did not search for any information about the case or the law which applies to the case or the people involved in the case. I will see you Thursday morning.
Jury leaving courtroom.
You may be seated. Ms. Daniels, you can step out.
Thank you, sir.
Witness excused.
Is there anything we need to discuss at this time?
No, Your Honor.
I will see you Thursday.
Thank you.
Whereupon the trial in this matter stood adjourned to Thursday, May 9th, 2024.